Okay, guys, it is part 2 about ultrasounds because March is the month of ultrasounds here at the Pulling Pearls podcast. Today, we are talking about ultrasound testing. Let's untangle it. Hi, I'm Hillary Erickson, the curly head behind the Pulling Curls podcast, where we untangle pregnancy, parenting, home, and even travel. We know there's no right answer for every family, but hopefully we can spark some ideas that will work for yours. Life's tangled, just like my hair. Okay, guys, before we get started, remember you can subscribe, right? That means every single episode will come to you on your favorite podcast player. You will not miss a thing. Be sure and subscribe. All right, if you don't remember her from last time, today's guest is my friend. Our daughters are friends from school, and she works at a high-risk perinatologist's office as an ultrasound tech. I want to introduce my friend, who is also Sono.Eyes on Instagram and TikTok, Marybeth. Do you feel prepared for your delivery? In just 3 short hours, you can be prepared for the confident, collaborative delivery you want. You'll know what to expect and how to talk with your healthcare team, and there are no boring lessons in this class. I'll use humor, stories from my 20 years in the delivery room to engage both of you. I love how Alyssa told me that she found herself laughing at things that used to sound scary. Most of all, you guys are going to be on the same page from bump to bassinet. Join the online prenatal class for couples today. You can save 15% with coupon code UNTANGLED. You can find the link in the show notes. Hey, Marybeth, welcome back. We're going to part 2 of ultrasounds here in Ultrasound Month.
Sounds great.
Because this is the month where it's black and white, guys.
It's all about ultrasound. All about it.
Yeah. So this one, we're talking about testing. So this is going to happen usually in your 3rd trimester. Your doctor's going to see something at your prenatal appointments. Last time we talked about congenital defects or whatever, and that's like separate. These are something usually related to your health, mom's health.
Right. It's called antenatal testing. We do typically start it in the 3rd trimester, but normally it's started around 32 to 36 weeks. And it's just monitoring. It's a well-being check of your baby is what it is. And we just want to make sure that for fetal factors or maternal factors, that you and your baby stay as healthy as possible up until delivery. That's really what it's for. But these are typically done. It's typically an ultrasound, which is called a BPP or a biophysical profile, and then a non-stress test, or we call it an NST. So there's many variations of how to do this. Some people do twice weekly antenatal testing, which is a BPP on one day and then a non-stress test on the other day. So you would do Mondays and Thursdays or Tuesdays and Fridays. And the concept is that somebody is touching your baby every couple of days just for their well-being. So some doctors just do non-stress tests. Some do just measure the amniotic fluid and do a non-stress test. Some just do a BPP. Some do NSTs and BPPs on the same day. There are many variables of antenatal testing, and it just depends on the patient, the provider. All these can be changed and adjusted as need be.
Yeah, and we hand out BPPs like candy.
Oh my gosh, BPPs for days. Yes. And I know you had said at your hospital, you did them always together.
Well, because they're only there for it. You know, a lot of times somebody comes in, they have a headache. We do the BPP to see where we're at. And part of the BPP is the NST, right? We're one of the numbers.
I think so. Yes. Like you can do a BPP separate. You can do an NST separate. You can do a measurement of the amniotic fluid separately. You can do them together. There's many variables and many variations of antenatal testing.
Yeah, that's true. Sometimes they just order an AFI, or sometimes they actually just order a fetal presentation. Is it head down?
Yeah. Oh yeah. That would just be like a limited, like, oh, are we just looking? Let's see. So, oh yeah, there's many, many things that we're doing on that one.
Yeah, but this would be the main one that people get. And I actually have a free prenatal class where we go into this more. I'll put the link in the show notes as well. Okay. So what does the BPP show us?
Well, the BPP, so a BPP is a 30-minute timed test. So that means that your baby has 30 minutes to complete their exam. So if your baby does everything in 5 minutes, in theory, we're done in 5 minutes, but we have up to 30 minutes to complete everything in. So each piece that we're looking for gives baby 2 points, and the test itself is 8 points total. That's our goal. So we are looking for what we call fetal breathing. So fetal breathing is a motion of the diaphragm. This is different than hiccups. Hiccups are also a diaphragmatic motion, but practice breathing is that breathing motion of the diaphragm. So the breathing, babies practice in clusters. So if a baby feels good, they will do this breathing on and off, but they're not really breathing, right? They live in a bubble, eat, drink, pee in the bubble. So they're not breathing like we would breathe it. But breathing monitors a baby for hypoxia. So think like a coma-like state. So if a baby feels good and they've got good oxygen in their brain, they'll do this little practice breathing. So for the biophysical profile, we want the baby to breathe continuously for 30 seconds or more. We also want to see gross body movement. So we want to see 3 big body movements. So like stretching, elbow, kicking, we want 3 separate movements. We always also look for fetal tone. That's the next thing. So tone can be opening and closing of the baby's hand or one big extension and flexion of the spine. That's tone. And then we also look for amniotic fluid. So we want you to have a pocket of amniotic fluid more than 2 centimeters. So breathing, gross body movements, fetal tone, amniotic fluid. Each one is 2 points for a total of 8. And then your baby has to do it within 30 minutes.
Yeah. Now, keep in mind, your doctor may order more than the BPP, and sometimes it takes a little bit from when they come in. So the actual BPP probably takes about 45 minutes in total because they have to like input your crap and then turn on the machine.
It kind of depends too. Like, are you there for growth at the same time? Oh, we're going to add growth into that. So, I mean, you can typically expect this test to be about 30 minutes, but it's also like what happens if the baby doesn't pass, right?
So if the baby doesn't pass, then you would go to labor and delivery or we would just assess like what's going on. We may order you another BPP. We're going to take a harder look at that NST. We may monitor your baby longer with the fetal heart rate strip. They may call a perinatologist most often.
You're right. But I think the important thing is it depends on why they don't pass. So if your baby is moving and you have good amniotic fluid, but we just don't catch one of those clusters of breathing, then we would put you on the NST to monitor it. And as long as the NST is good, then that negates the breathing and the BPP. Now, if you have a BPP and there's no water around your baby, it's time to have a baby. So we would send you right to the hospital if your water has broken or you've ruptured, you have a leak. So it kind of depends on what part, right? And this is kind of how we escalate it, depending on what part.
Well, and how far along you are. That's honestly the big one. Because if you're 39 weeks and stuff looks sketchy, we're like, and
we're done. Let's go have a baby. Today's your baby's birthday.
Yes. You're 34 weeks and we're like, oh, we're just going to think about it a little bit longer. That's when you get the long fetal heart rate monitoring, the doctor making phone calls.
Extensive monitoring just to make sure. Absolutely. This all depends on your gestational age. Absolutely.
And what's going on with mom? Because let's say your blood pressure is like through the roof and you have a big old headache and then your labs come back. And because a lot of time it's a BPP plus PAH labs. And so we're doing all this. We're doing a workup on you. We're doing serial blood pressures. We're just watching you for longer than they'd watch in the doctor's office. So they likely saw something askew in the doctor's office, or you have a risk factor, advanced maternal age, diabetes, high blood pressure. And then they're just ordering this test. And then we would advance it with a longer fetal heart rate check or all those different things. Yeah. So it's just a test.
Yeah. And I mean, for antenatal testing, there's many reasons why we recommend this, right? So for maternal, if you have high blood pressure, if you're diabetic, if you're overdue, right? You've gone over 40 weeks. If you have a history of a stillbirth, if you have lupus, if you have a starting BMI over 40, or if you're AMA. This is all just monitoring because of maternal reasons. Now, some of the reasons that we monitor because of the baby or fetal complications, this is like fetal growth restriction. That's one of them if the baby's smaller. If your amniotic fluid is really low, or if your amniotic fluid is really high, if your baby has an abnormality, or if you have multiple babies in there, we monitor. Or if you're just not feeling the baby as much. We just want to make sure that you and the baby are as healthy as possible for as long as possible.
Yeah. And there's reasons behind all of that. You know, like a previous stillbirth, it just reassures mom and you, and we don't know maybe why it happened last time. Yeah. All of it can just be really reassuring because the BPP shows that baby, you know, in the next day or so is doing okay.
Right. And it really, like, this is what this is for. We want to make sure that your stress level is low, that we have done everything we can to take care of the baby and mom, always.
Now, at your clinic, do you guys buzz the baby sometimes with the BPP? I never can tell if that's in the rules or not.
Yeah, the acoustic stimulator. Yes, that's what it's called, an acoustic stimulator. Yeah, we have a buzzer. We are not afraid to use it. However, I want the baby to move on its own. So there's A lot of times we'll move the patient to her left side, drink some cold water. Like I want to see at least 15 minutes and I want to give that baby a chance to work out. Now I might be kind of tapping the baby, mom might be tapping the baby, but after 15 minutes, if the baby hasn't moved, then I'll typically go get the buzzer. But some places don't use it. Some places use it a lot. So
half the time we can't find it.
Oh my gosh. Right. We're always like, where is it? Anyone got these Sims? Come on. So yes, we're always looking for it. We have one place in the office. Everyone puts it in that one spot. We're like, just put it back. Everyone
Before I've been like, could she just put her phone on vibrate?
Right. You actually can. You can. There are some people, they'll put their phone on vibrate. I actually, one patient told me that their doctor had metal spoons and they'd put the spoon up and then tap the spoon and it would send the vibrate. Brilliant. Brilliant. I mean, it's all about an acoustic stimulation and that reverberation of the spoons woke the baby up.
Yeah. So the idea there is just to wake the baby up. Because obviously, if you were in a dead sleep, people might think you were dead too, because in the middle of the night.
Well, and that's the thing, like you're rolling on your side. If I've buzzed that baby and that baby is not waking up, I'm starting to get a little nervous, right? So anytime, like it's meant to startle them. It's meant to startle them awake. And if it doesn't, then we have to say, why isn't it? Why is not the baby waking up? And then do we escalate our testing? And it could just be the baby's in a deep sleep, but we do not assume, right? We don't assume that they're sleeping. If we've done everything we can to wake the baby up, we've buzzed them and they're still not awake, then and we need to escalate it to labor and delivery.
And I start every BPP NST with ice water. Like I just walk in your room with a big thing of ice water because it's going to show me what I need to see on the NST. It's going to show the ultrasound tech what they want. And ultimately, it's going to get you out faster if that's the outcome that happens.
Totally. I always tell people, do not roll out of bed and come to your BPP and NST. Like get up, have something to eat. Have something nice to drink. Like your baby likes that. And we want them awake. We want them moving. We want them active. And if they're just sleeping, then all this testing takes much longer if you've not prepared for it.
Yeah. Same for an OB appointment too. Because people will just show up and they're in their pajamas and you're like, when did you last eat? And they're like 7 p.m. last night. And you're like, oh, great.
Yeah. Right. Like we need you to be awake. We need you to put food in your system, preferably protein with a carb. And so like your sugar levels are good, your baby's awake and you feel good. So yeah, that's what we always want that for testing. We want you awake. We want baby moving. That's what we want.
Yeah. And if your doctor does BPPs in the office versus at the hospital, aim for the office because at the hospital, you then have to see the nurse. We then go through the entire admission process.
Absolutely.
We then, their ultrasound techs probably aren't as good. You didn't hear that from me. And, it's just nicer in your office because you're just going to walk in that room. They're going to throw that ultrasound on you and then you're going to be done. It's not going to be, you feel safe in your home environment.
Absolutely. And I always tell people like with antenatal testing too, if there's any way that you can like do your ultrasound and then see your provider, you get antenatal testing. If it's twice a week, that's already 2 appointments. So if you can couple one of those appointments with your provider's appointment in office, then you've narrowed it down to just 2 days a week versus 3 separate appointments. So I always tell people, grab one of those appointments. If you're going to your OB office, see your provider at the same time so that you've minimized your appointments. Because really with antenatal testing, like if you're diabetic, you're going twice a week, you're seeing your OB every other week. You may see a dietitian to go over your sugar log. It's a lot of appointments. I mean, I don't know how we as moms work and do anything and then have 5 appointments for their pregnancy a week, right? Like,
no.
So anytime you can kind of piggyback one to the other and go through your OB office and have that, that's the best way to do it right there.
Yes, totally. I totally agree and sometimes doctors just like space it. They're like, and I'll just see her on Wednesday. And I'm like, she's already here on Monday and Thursday. And then you're going to throw a Wednesday in. And then they're like, oh, good point. And you're like, where are you? But they just don't think the same way.
They're not thinking, they're like, just have her come back next week. And you're like, well, I see she's coming back on Thursday. How does Thursday sound? Okay, sounds good. Like they just want to see you at some time. So unless it's very specific, you as a patient can kind of dictate these. And you have to be proactive in that because some offices won't see that you're already scheduled. So you have to be proactive, know when your appointments are, know why you're having your appointment and when you can adjust times, things like that. And we in that office, we appreciate when patients say, I'm already here on Thursday. Could we add that either before or after? Yes, it's so much easier. We appreciate that on the scheduling end. Absolutely.
Yeah. I think people are always like, oh, I don't want to bother them, but
oh no, we are here. We are here to be bothered. That is our job. Like we want you an active participant in your pregnancy, in your appointments. So we prefer that for sure.
Yeah. So the BPP, it just gets ordered a ton. When I said we give it out like candy, like most people, especially if they've headed into the past 39 weeks, have seen a BPP.
Right.
I mean, I didn't on my first two because I was young and healthy, but with Paige, I was past 40 weeks, got a BPP. So it's just, it's nothing to be concerned about. It's just extra monitoring.
And don't you feel like if you're coming into the hospital because of decreased fetal movement or you think you're leaking, that's like the first thing that you would order in the hospital. Okay, well, let's see how much fluid you have. Let's see. I mean, that's something you would order if they come in for anything like that with labor and delivery, right?
I mean, it depends. Depends on the doctor, depends on the patient. If they come in 6 times this week.
That's true.
Have we
That's
done
true.
a BPP 2 days ago? But a lot of times we order a BPP just because it just makes everyone feel safer, especially decreased fetal movement. If you're not feeling the baby move and this is your first time, you know, you haven't felt it several times, we will probably order a BPP just to be on the safe side and make sure that baby, you know, is getting those movements in.
So, I mean, you could get a BPP and not be antenatal testing. That's what I mean. Like, the BPP is not only because you have these complications. It is really a well-being check, and it's the best tool in our toolbox. So we want to monitor that baby. We want to monitor fluid. And if you're at labor and delivery because you can't feel the baby move, that's what we're going to do. We're going to do our well-being check on the baby.
Yeah. And your end, you're still doing kick counts. So don't let the BPP take over your kick counts because you still need to be doing all the things on your end to make sure that you're healthy and you're feeling the baby move. This is just a good technological way. It really is a lot like a kick count, really, just with an ultrasound machine.
It really is. And your non-stress test, and I think you can talk more about this, but your non-stress test, you can see if there's low fluid on the non-stress test. You can see if you're contracting. You can see how well the heart rate is. There's a lot that we put together with NSTs and BPP. That's a lot of information for us.
Yeah. So the NST is called a non-stress test. It's just when you're in relaxed, meaning you're not contracting or like working, we monitor the baby just to make sure it's doing fine just in the womb. You can actually do a contraction stress test, a CST, where we make you contract and then we see how the baby tolerates contractions, but that's pretty rare. And so most of us just do the NSTs. And that's what your nurse has spent hours and hours and hours of training to read fetal monitoring strips. Like that's their one superpower. So that's what we're there for, is just to monitor. And they say that if you have a reactive NST, which is like a good NST, then baby's good for 24 hours. That's
right.
That's what they say.
Yep.
Yeah.
Now the NST, that's what you're wearing while you're in labor the whole time. That's your fetal monitoring strip, right?
Yeah, we're basically just doing an NST over
the entire time. So it's not like, it only is used in this world. Like when you go into labor, they're going to hook those belts onto you, right? Are you contracting? How is the baby doing? We're constantly monitoring the baby all throughout delivery. It's basically like the world's longest NST, and depending on your delivery. Correct?
Yeah. And an NST is only supposed to last, I think it's a half an hour also.
Right,
same thing there. So if we're not seeing the baby move, then, and of course we've given him water with ice and moved him all over the place. But if we're not seeing the baby move, then we need to, probably get a BPP or extend from there.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
The thing is, it's just the total picture because a lot of it depends on how many weeks you are, your health, what other issues you have going on, any issues you've had with other pregnancies, yada, yada. So every person is different because a lot of people will be like, well, my sister-in-law, they ordered BPPs from 38 weeks on and I feel like I should be getting an ultrasound. And I'm like, yeah, but you're 24 and she was 38. It's very different.
Very different. And then you have some doctors that just like them on a lot of people and some that just don't. So really, this is kind of individual in practice. ACOG has come out and they do have recommendations like anyone who's over 35 should get antenatal testing from 36 weeks until you deliver. So there are certain parameters, but your OB might say, you're feeling baby move, let's do an NST a week, and I'm fine with that. So there's so many variables in this.
Yeah.
So many variables.
And your ability to pay. Because they're not cheap.
They are not cheap. But if you've met your deductible, then you're good. But
yeah, and you're likely going to meet your deductible. But I've had cash pay patients who have said before, what else can I do? Because this $500 a week is going to kill us, which is fair.
Right. They're expensive. And if they're not covered, like if your doctor wants them, but they're not covered, it is tricky. It's hard. And I hate that we have to, as parents, as moms, we have to balance that. But I understand that sometimes we do.
Because feeding yourself would be the hierarchy of a BPP.
It's important to have shelter and it's important to have power. Like I get it. I do. So I think a lot of providers are willing to work with the patient. Like, okay, well, maybe we just do one BPP a week, or we do one NST, and we don't go to the hospital because it's more expensive. We do it outpatient, things like that. I know a lot of providers are really good about that, working with patients.
Yeah. So if it is an issue getting to the office, paying for it, talk to your provider because they want to work with you and they want to do something that's as safe as they can be.
Yeah, because as providers, we want you and your baby to be healthy. That is ultimately the number one goal. So we'll do whatever it takes.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
All right. Awesome. Hopefully everybody understands ultrasounds a little bit more. And I will say that when I go in for that dating ultrasound, I'm a basket case, probably because I've just read a lot of ultrasounds, but it is a whole lot more than gender, but it is so exciting to see your baby and just revel in how exciting it is. And especially for your partner, I always felt bad during quarantine when partners weren't able to come to ultrasounds. That was heartbreaking.
So heartbreaking. It really was so heartbreaking. I hated that part.
Yeah.
I really did.
Hopefully that never happens again and we figure something out. Yeah. So involve your partner in it because it's exciting for you, both of you. And they really, for you, you might have felt the baby kick, but that's really their moment to be like, wow, it has a face and fingers and this is real.
And it really, every time I don't get sick of doing ultrasounds at all because it's like a miracle every single time. And it's lovely. I just love it. So it's for patients, like that's your time to really feel connected. And right, the first trimester, like there's really a baby in there. I mean, it's exciting and it's amazing. And I want everyone to have a healthy pregnancy and a good experience in their ultrasounds because that's what it's there for.
Yeah. And ask all the questions you can. They may not answer if they may be like, hold on while they're working, right?
Right. Again, some people talk a lot, some people don't, but
and the tech may not be able to answer all the questions.
Right. If you go into a hospital, like they can't give you all information. If you go into the ER, you really can't get. They're not supposed to tell you. We're not physicians, and that is essentially giving a result. So we're not able to do that. But we want you to have a good experience no matter what.
Yeah.
Our goal is always the same. Healthy mom, healthy baby. That's always our goal.
And they can always just say, I'm sorry, I can't tell you that, but your doctor will let you know.
Absolutely. And most are really good about it. Absolutely.
All right. Thanks for coming on. This was awesome.
All right. Thanks, Hillary. Appreciate it.
All right. I hope you guys enjoyed that episode. I have to say, so many people come in for a BPP and literally have no idea why their doctor is ordering it. So if your doctor orders a test, make sure you ask them why or what they're looking for, or all those different kinds of things so that you can be a little bit more informed about your care. In my free birth prep pack, there is a whole lesson on third trimester testing and what your doctor's looking for. So you guys could really enjoy that as well. It also talks about warning signs that should make you come into labor and delivery. I also have some birth plan information and labor movement and postpartum information. Be sure and grab that free birth prep pack. It is available at Pulling Curls if you just type in free birth prep pack or go to the show notes and the link will be there also. Thanks so much for joining us on today's episode. We know you have lots of options for your ears and we are glad that you chose us. We drop episodes weekly, and until next time, we hope you have a tangle-free day.